Hello and welcome to the Elder Tree podcast. My name is Twiggy Dawn, founder of the Elder Tree and Alchemilla Herbals. You are listening to the Herbal Educators segment, where each new moon I will be inviting a series of guests to chat about the world of herbal education, about their passions and motivations, and their dreams for the future of herbal medicine in Australia. Good morning, Christopher, and thank you for joining me here today on the Elder Tree podcast.
Thanks, Twiggy. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you here today.
Thank you. It is such a great honour to have you on the show with us as a herbalist elder and someone with your breadth of knowledge and experience. Very excited to get to interview you on here. Our test call ended up going for an hour the other day, and I just thought we could actually end up interviewing for hours if we wanted to.
Yeah, when you get on a roll, there's just so much to talk about. And I'm pretty passionate about it and pretty chatty about it. But we'll have a great talk today, and I'm sure folk will find it of interest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful. I wish that everyone could see the videos, because our last call that we had together, we just were pulling out all our favourite books and showing each other our favourite books and getting so excited about, the world of herbal books out there.
Yeah, that was fun. I've actually got a book here alongside of me, The Business of Botanicals by Anne Armbrecht. I just picked it up the other day. Very good, very good. I've got an insight into the commercial side of herb trade internationally. It's a good insight into just, because her basis was, what is this commercial trade in herbs? And she went and travelled around and discovered and talked to people, and I think she went to Eastern Europe, North America and India. And Anne runs the Sustainable Herbs podcast, supported by the American Botanical Council. She has some great interviews there. Very good. Yeah, at the moment I'm just sort of skimming, and then I always do that with books. I get a bit excited. I can only skim, and then I'll calm down and come back and read it from A to Z.
Oh, that's wonderful. I've seen that book online, and I've thought, quite a few times thought about buying it. So it's good to have your recommendation, and I'm totally hearing where you're coming from with getting really excited whenever you get a new book. I'm exactly the same. So my first question for you today, the first topic that I'd love to go into, I'd love to hear what your experience has been in learning and to get to where you are now, knowing that being a student is a lifelong journey. But, I'd love to hear a bit about your experience with schooling and your biggest inspirations as well, in terms of influential people that have got you to this point where you're at now.
Sure, Twiggy. It's a whole series of experiences. I moved to Canberra for a little bit more economic opportunity in the 90s, and I was sharing a house with a friend of mine, Mike, and he was starting to hang around the Heirophant in Canberra, and he was doing some of their courses. And he said, you got to come along and do, the homeopathic first aid course with Tim Thomas and Kim Dudley. So I started with that. And then I took up studying homeopathy at the Heirophant, and they had a 3-year program. I lasted 1.5 years until I sunk beneath the waves under the weight of the materia medica. I could never quite get a feel on that. But look, never wasted effort. Later on I did a plant alchemy course with them. But with the Heirophant, what I really picked up was, you could say it's their eclectic approach. So they would talk a herb or a homeopathic or a flower essence in one sentence. There was no borders or divides between these realms. And that was really good. And also they picked up from the Dorothy Hall theme of plants and medicinal herbs having, a psychological profile, a personality, Kim Dudley was getting almost into the archetypes and themes of the herbs. So it was not just, put this on your toe for tinea or whatever. It was a very deep and broad aspect to the herbs. So you really got to know them, as intelligent entities. And for me, it really made a lot of sense. I could understand them in terms of people, like as people, humans, we go through a whole series of stages that different remedies correspond with. And that made a lot of sense for me. So that got me a long way along the path. Then, still sharing house with Mike, he started studying Dorothy Hall. Now, I never did her course, but I read all the books, listened to all the tapes, and we had long, long talks about these plants. So he was a fellow horticulturist like myself, so we're always coming at it from the plant angle. That was great. What would you say? The next big jump would be being at Matthew Wood's talks when he came to Canberra and reading his book, The Book of Herbal Wisdom. That experience was what got me to start growing the plants, because I went off looking for these specific herbs, Solomons Seal, teasel, sweetleaf. No one had them. So the horticultural brain kicked in and I started growing them. So that was like another development. What a really big step forward was going to Tinderry Herbs in Tasmania with Ken Atherton. And you don't realise at the time how much you pick up, because you're there. It's like whole immersion learning. You're talking, you're listening, you're watching, you're seeing all the things he's doing. I fell in love with his laboratory. It was great. Mm-hmm. He had plants everywhere. And it was funny because a homeopath had recommended to me, Jerry Dendrios, had said, Christopher, go to Tinderry. That's all I'm going to say. Go to Tinderry. It was like a direction. Okay, Jerry, I'm going. When I got there, I'm looking around and I'm thinking, God, this is just like the farm. We didn't have the accommodation thing, or maybe the wonderful lab, but the feel was the same. He was growing lots of plants. He was making stuff from it, which was really good, because I didn't feel like I'd landed on Mars. It was familiar. I could see lots of correspondences. I felt at home. And, it's only recently I've realised just how much I learnt when I was there. And maybe it's a theme we'll pick up later on in the questions and the discussion, that learning happens on these different levels. It's not just what you read in the notes. It's what you see. It's being with a person, almost like you're in their force field. We don't have words for it accurately, but it was like a mini mentorship, apprenticeship, if you took it on. And I'm still referring back to those notes. So coming back to the question, finally, I then topped it off with an advanced diploma in Western herbalism. I managed to just get in before the university qualification requirement came in. And that was with a local, one of the last small colleges around. I've got to think of their name now. Gosh, how about that? I've forgotten it. But it was one of those last colleges. There was, we were down to 3 or 4 students, and we got our qualification and came in. So for me, that was formalising my interest. So moving from being sort of self-study and a course here and a course there to systematising my knowledge a bit more, getting a recognised industry qualification. And that was great. And our herbal teacher there was Steve Allen, and he'd been working with herbs 30 years in the trade, which is great. And he actually wrote his own book on herbal energetics, which is brilliant, because in our preliminary discussion, we're talking about how important this knowledge from people who've been practitioners for a long time, that it be preserved in some way, be it a book, some courses, recordings or whatever, because, people die and this stuff slips slips under the waves again, and valuable insights are lost. Yeah. So there you go. There's a bit of a potted history.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, and that was something we were talking a lot about the other day is that, it's sad when someone, a wise person passes away and that knowledge goes with them. So it's beautiful when that knowledge can live on in books and can live on in the students, that then go on and kind of continue on that legacy. I've had so many people interviewed on this show already that were, including myself, greatly impacted by Ken Atherton at Tinderry Herbs. He really, spread a lot of seeds out with all of his inspiration and knowledge and experience, and then has spawned this kind of next generation of people from his teaching. So he lives on, even though he's passed away quite some time ago, but he lives on in the in the knowledge and the minds of his students.
I get goosebumps when you say that. Yeah, I have enormous respect for what Ken achieved. Yeah, I mean, he's a quirky character, and aren't we all? But his passion there was just fantastic. And coming from being a pharmacist, and his passion for making things, and for people being self-reliant in terms of growing the herbs, having them there as a resource, to draw on. Yeah, it was great. So I enjoyed having all those influences because you can compare, contrast, one builds onto another. Yeah, I think it's really important to have that diversity of inspiration and teachers and everything. I mean, on top of that, just reading truckloads of books on herbs, that helps. And then you get to see everyone's got their own little particular niche where they're really good at. Some people are good wild crafters and putting together information. Others sort of, pick up all this psychological, archetypal parts of herbs. It's quite good.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for sharing a bit of your background and inspirations and things that have led you to this point. So I'm curious then, what made you want to start teaching other people about herbal medicine?
Good question. It's a bit of it is monkey see, monkey do. So I've seen Ken do it. I saw Tim Thomas and Kim Dudley at the Heirophant do it. You hear of Dorothy Hall doing it. For me, because I started growing the herbal plants almost like an example garden, almost like a botanical ark. I then started with just having little workshops with people come out and see these herbs, actually connecting the people to the plant. So, this is Goldenseal, this is black cohosh, this is blue cohosh, this is blah, 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 blah. And it was a real buzz to see people's reaction when they saw these plants. Now, coming from a horticulture background, if I'm not careful, I can overlook that or dismiss that because I'm in the swim of that all the time, thinking from the living plant perspective. But if someone's been, they might have seen a few photos, they've learned about it, through their courses, and they've seen the liquid in the bottle or the pill, they may never have seen a black cohosh plant. So I think I found that was a profound thing, and I followed through with that for several years. I had 135 different plants, and I can remember Ken saying, "Oh, I've hit peak plant." He had 120 herbs, and he was saying, he couldn't fit any more in, and blah blah blah. And at the time, I was a bit arrogant, and I thought, "Oh, come on, Ken, you can do better than 120." Well, I got to 135 and I know what he was talking about. You just can't keep that many balls juggling in the air. We had a drought. You run out of pots, you run out of water, you run out of potting soil, you run out of time. Unless you're a botanic garden, you can't, maintain that number of diversity for too long. So the drought then got me to really come back and focus on what I wanted to do. And I came back to a core number of herbs that weren't available commercially, and since added to that one or two that have what we've found in the last couple of years have just dried up. Their availability has disappeared, namely Goldenseal and Arnica. And we might come back to them in a bit more detail later on. So what's the other thing? I'm always concerned about this loss of knowledge. I really get a bee in my bonnet about that. So it's like, okay, let's pass on the bits that I know, connect people with just some basic ways they can use herbs and empower themselves in their own lives, and just keep it going so it doesn't disappear, because we've had herbal dark ages before. You can imagine what it would have been like for someone like Dorothy Hall trying to set up a practice. There were really no colleges. I think she studied overseas or something, and just ground up trying to establish it, and all the crazy questions that would have been attracted to her. So let's keep it alive in some way, and keep it going.
Yeah, beautiful. Wow, there's so much in what you just said, and I totally connect with all of that. I share your passion about the sadness when there's loss of knowledge, and we are very blessed to live in an era where there's so much information available. But yeah, that, and also like 135 medicinal species. Totally hearing where you're coming from too, because I for quite a few years, I mean, I'm still doing it a bit, but like for many years, I just was collecting as many different plants as I absolutely could, as many different medicinal plants as I could, and I thought, I've got to secure the future availability, because what if these, all these online nurseries, All Rare Herbs or Mudbrick Cottage, or all of these, because I couldn't source them locally. But what if all of these online nurseries just suddenly close down, or postage isn't available? So I've got to try to just get as many different species as I can, so then it's just kind of, ensuring the future availability. But then within that, each one of those plants has such its own specific needs, its own preferred climate, and water and soil and all of that. So I was definitely giving myself way too much work, and so it's been a journey to just surrender more and more to the fact that I am in a tropical climate, and that growing a lot of, Western herbal medicine. I've managed black cohosh. You were talking about that. I've managed to kill that plant a couple of times because it's not suited to this climate. So I'm just, pushing things uphill to try to, try to grow those plants. So it is a bit of a kind of, how many can I, and count all the different species. How many can I get to? A bit of a goal, but then learning that, stripping it back, and kind of refining and growing more of certain things. So you've really narrowed it down to like 3 main plants that you're specializing in now, aren't you? The 3 plants that are that aren't being really provided within Australia to practitioners. Isn't that right? The Solomons Seal, Goldenseal, and Arnica.
Right. Yeah, I started with Solomons Seal, inspired by Matthew Wood, and that is pretty amazing. So I've got it took me many years, but I've got what you would call it a self-sustaining propagation harvesting schedule going. So that's done. I'm in the midst, year 2, coming into year 3 of Goldenseal. I had been growing it for a while, but not in, just a few plants and a bit of fiddling around and a bit of division. So for the last 2 years, I've been serious in maximising the amount of propagation I can do with this plant to get up to a critical stock level, such I can harvest annually to make medicine and still keep the mother stock plants going and slightly increase them. So it's sort of like plant cultivation versus versus mathematics, and you're working with the time scale of the plant. It's not like a widget factory. You can go buy another machine, you can go buy another shed, you can go hire another 20 people. The plant grows at its own pace, so they really teach you patience. But golden seal's easier to propagate than Solomon seal, because you've got seed, which I've used, and you've got about another 3 to 4 different vegetative propagation methods to keep it going. There's root cuttings, there's divisions, there's suckers, because it forms like a little colonial group when it grows. It just doesn't sort of sit in one spot. So for growing, that is fantastic. But, once again, we've got to wait. People keep saying, when are you going to have a harvest? And I'm thinking, I don't know yet. 3-4 years, maybe. So much of it happens underground. You've got a few leaves above. So not until I repot the mother stock, which I'll do on a 2-year cycle, am I going to get a feel for how fast this plant will grow. But look, you've got to start. And what I often say is, with these plants, even the ones with really long growing and harvesting cycles, so if you're taking ginseng, for example, 8 years to get to harvestable size. If you're doing continual propagation efforts every year, you only have to wait for 8 years once. And then, you're getting material coming through that you can harvest, and away you go. So it's worth it. But yeah, it's a challenge. But yeah, 3 to 4 years. I say 3 to 4 years. It could be a little bit less. And also, we mentioned briefly before that the leaf and the stem are also possible to be harvested and used as medicine, although the dosage rate may well be different. So anyway, that's a bit of a ramble about golden seal. And Arnica is another one. Arnica montana, Arnica chamasonis. In fact, Arnica and golden seal are a really good example of how, maybe as practitioners and as a broader industry, we've been lazy. And with the changes over the last couple of years, disruption to supply lines, changed economic conditions, a whole range of stuff, we've basically been caught with our herbal pants down, that there's no local, no local growers of quantity of these plants. We've got a few backyard growers, and I'm sort of trying to move from being a backyard grower into a small-scale commercial grower. We just haven't got the material. And they're not hard to grow if you put the effort in to work with the plant. So I think, even though we've got this blip where we can't get these plants, if we take it on, it'll end up being a really good thing, because we'll actually look at our supply lines, see the value in us actually growing our own plant medicine here in Australia. So we're not dependent on these crazy long supply lines. We're not dependent on, poor folk tromping up and down the hills of Bulgaria collecting Arnica flowers. We're not dependent on plants being ripped out of the forests, like with golden seal, with wild harvest. We can grow it sustainably and create right living for a whole range of people. So it's not just Christopher Smith growing golden seal and Arnica. There's room for a whole range of people. And that makes sense too, because then we're not vulnerable to one place, one location, one person. You've got a degree of stability, much like an ecological system. You just don't have one tree, one bush, one herb, or a plant. You've got diversity, you've got numbers, you've got a range of, genetic resources there. So I guess, there's a whole lot in that about creating a new economy, right living approach to our herbal medicine, and taking into the aspect of, where we get these plants from. PPC herbs, what do they grow? Is it about 120 herbs down in Tasmania? Which is wonderful.
They do great tinctures.
Yeah, so I had some of their green oat seed or milky oat seed tincture, and very smooth, very good. Yeah, they put a lot of care into it. So there you go.
Beautiful.
That's a big, long-winded answer.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. It's great to hear where you're coming from, and there's so many benefits to that, to becoming more self-sufficient, like as a country. To have our not be importing so many other medicines, especially other medicines that do have to be wild harvested primarily, and that are becoming rare and endangered due to unsustainable harvesting practices. And also, what happens is a lot of countries where they have their local medicines, and then when those local medicines are getting exported so much, it ups the price even for the locals. So the locals end up not having such access to their own local medicines, and then other people come in and start, taking, like, anyway, all of that kind of ethical element to importing from other countries. And also, I think there's a lot of benefit to be had for plants growing in the soil of the land that you're on, of this country. It's I feel like when plants are planted in Australia, and we're having the medicine from Australia, it's a bit more attuned to what we kind of need. It's been grown in this earth that we're residing on, and so it's kind of like energetically, but also in the soil. It's just kind of attuning to what we need here and now. And yeah, and there's so much to it as well, even just on the environmental footprint being lowered, of not having to be it's shipping over, and all of the fuel consumption and everything around that. So us becoming more self-sufficient with our medicine is has just so many benefits. So yeah, I really applaud you with the work you're doing, and I also really appreciate your non-competitive mindset around, like, get as many other people doing it as well. Even though you're specializing in these three plants currently, you're really wanting to empower other people and educate other people so that they can do the same. And yeah, it's a very honourable thing.
Yeah, it's like you've got to call yourself on your ego. It's like, there's no way I can grow all of Australia's needs for Arnica and Goldenseal. It's like, oh God, but I can be a catalyst. I can assist. I can pioneer. And
Hmm.
a phrase came to me the other day, almost like I'm doing proof of concept growing, that, we have got the plants here. We can grow them here. Here's the cultural skills you need to get these guys growing. Because I document a lot of what I do with photographs and notes and things over the years. And it's been a really valuable resource, because then you can prove that, and you can show what you've done. I did a presentation to Torrens University students, and I was able to put a slideshow together to say, okay, so this is Goldenseal, this is the flower, this is the berry, this is washing the seed, this is what the seedlings look like when they germinate, all these different stages. So people can see it and really get the gist of it. And it's an opportunity for us to get out of these crazy economic distortions we're in at the moment, where, like you said, someone's folk medicine in Eastern Europe, they get priced out of the market, or that's not there, or the government comes in and protects it because it's been over harvested, because there's been so much demand. Because we want to have cheap herbs over here.
Hmm.
Yeah, so we need, it's a way of we taking responsibility as an adult for our
Hmm.
medicine.
Yeah. Yep, totally hearing where you're coming from, and I think it's a really beautiful thing, and it's great that you're sharing it with other people. So I know that leads me as well to my next question around what have been for you as a herbal educator. What have been some of the hidden and possibly unexpected gems? Because you expressed that you came into it a bit like monkey see, monkey do, and you appreciated the inspiration of being being shown the plants directly, and so then you develop that appreciation for showing other people the plants directly and giving them a actual kind of living relationship, and plant meet human kind of thing. So we kind of heard a bit about what led you into it, but yeah, what has been some of the benefits of what it's brought to your life? And yeah.
Yeah, a couple of things. Well, first, there's like, you get a kick out of seeing people react to the plants, like them, get interested and excited about them, want to touch them. it's funny, I did a talk, what was it, a year and a half, couple of years ago about Solomons Seal at the Heirophant, and I had plants out the front for sale. How excited people got about that. Like the plants sold before the talk even started. So there's a real hunger there, this keenness to see. What's the other thing? Getting people together in that sort of environment, all the knowledge sharing that goes on. And it's not just me or whoever else is running a workshop up the front going blah, blah, blah as the fountain of all wisdom. It's people's comments and their experience and things. It's quite amazing. Everyone starts to open up and share information, and I've had people share great information to me. It's like, oh, look, I've got this course thing, have a look at that, or have you thought about that in your formulation? Profoundly generous sharing amongst people of their knowledge. Oh, do you know so-and-so? Incredible. So, I mean, you could call it networking, but it's a little bit more than that. It's like in gardening, just, straight mainstream gardening, there's always been this generosity between gardeners. In like, I go to your garden, Twiggy, and you're showing me around, and you're saying, here, have a cutting from this and a division from that and a blah, 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 and this, that, and the other. And you go home with a basket of stuff, and someone comes to my garden and the same thing happens. Mm-hmm. So it was good to see that that generosity of knowledge and information and connections happen. So yeah, that's always really reassuring and great to see when it happens. Yeah. And look, you never know what you get out of this until a long time later. It's like, Tinderry Herbs, I was down there, okay? You can say, oh yeah, went to Tinderry, got the notes, yeah. But what you find over time is you come back. Like I went back through the notes again. I thought, oh, look what Ken wrote there. Oh, look, he's got a recipe there. There's such an abundance of generosity there and the things. You still get things from it. We're still talking about it. Mm-hmm. So it creates something that people really engage with, which is good. It's not just a Sunday afternoon entertainment.
Yeah. Yeah, you're reminding me I've got to go back over my Tinderry notes too. Whenever I go through them, I always get a lot from it as well. Yeah, beautiful. And yeah, as well, I suppose what the picture you're painting as a herbal educator is, it's not just you there sharing all of your knowledge and wisdom. You're also like holding space for everyone to share their resources with one another and find kinship in that space. And I mean, I find that too. Often in my workshops, bringing all the people together that they're almost like the odd one out in their peer group. They're like, oh my God, I'm around people that also share this passion, and they're excited to be in that learning environment and get to be around other people that share this interest and this passion, and then sparks fly, and then they're just swapping contacts or giving each other links to this amazing supplier, or all of those kind of things that happen. So yeah, I suppose that the benefit is even beyond what you kind of give. It's the space you hold for everyone else to give to each other as well.
Yeah, when I had workshops on the farm, we'd have a lunch break, and rather than a really, functional, hyper functional, whatever, 30 minutes or whatever, it's like, oh, we can have an hour and a half, because people would yap so much. And I'd learn stuff, and they'd all learn stuff. And like you said, yeah, there's a big social connection element there.
Yeah, beautiful. So that's one benefit. Well, there's actually a fair few benefits that have been outlaid there. But my next question that I love to ask people that come on to this segment is what role you feel that herbal education is playing for the health, I suppose, of the world and of your community, like on a bigger scale than just what you're personally offering, like just the place that herbal education has, even for non-herbalists, just for anyone to come along and learn about this. What do you think are some of the benefits and the role that this is playing?
Okay, couple of points. So firstly, we'll just start with giving people the simple resources, skills and knowledge to do some basic health care for themselves, whether it's just a herbal tea or they make a cream they can put on a cut. That's good because it gives them that experience that, you know, this stuff really does work. You know, it's transformational when someone uses a herb in a way and, you know, this cut that would never heal or this bruise or whatever, suddenly, you know, the herbs do their magic and it's sorted out. That experience really resonates with people. So I think that's great. At a deeper level, trying to shift the belief, perception, whatever it is that, you know, I've got a sore ankle, I'm looking for the sore ankle herb. You know, what herb's good for that? You know, I've got condition X, I need herb Y. Anything we can do to shift that, because that's that modern consumerist reductionist outlook.
Yeah, the allopathic model.
Yeah, it doesn't sit with herbs. Okay, bruise, you can put Arnica on. Okay, that's X for Y. But there's a lot more to it than that. That's just a very surface layer. So anything we could do to deepen that, I think, would be profound. Because I always say that maybe we don't realise enough. We are empiricists trying to exist in a rationalist world, rationalist reductionist world. Now, I've got to remember that homeopath's name who wrote that whole Divided Legacy, Harris Coulter. If you ever wanted an incredibly erudite, enormous answer filled with a whole lot of historical references, I think he wrote 4 volumes tracing the history of medicine from the Greeks right up to, you know, 1970s current times. He wrote about that continual conflict and different approach: empiricism, natural medicine, rationalists, which is our expression of modern medicine. So we need to be sticking up for the empiricism side of the argument and what it has to bring to the table. And it's not saying one's good and one's bad, but we're empiricists. And I think we forget that, or it's easy to forget that because we're dominated so much by facts, figures, statistics. Where's the scientific proof / paper research on that? Blah, blah, blah. You know, our personal experience gets devalued. I think, haven't we got a chain of evidence, you know, the how we assess evidence and what's supposed to be the best model and, you know, the way of gaining evidence, and empiricism and personal experience, you know, it's the bottom of the pile. And yet that's been a source of insights, inspiration and knowledge for herbal medicine for thousands of years. So there's my promo spiel for that. When I was writing notes this morning thinking about our talk, Twiggy, there's another thing I put down here, that not to forget how big a deal it is for folk to come and see a natural medicine practitioner, whatever flavour, you know, homeopath or herbalist or whatever. Because I remember my experience and what sort of state I was in, that such that I got over my, you know, ignorance, resistance, whatever, to go and make an appointment and turn up. So, because I think sometimes in our talks with people in terms of education, like, we're in the pool, we're in swimming in herbal medicine every day. To us, it's normal. To a lot of people, you know, it's a bit out there. Like, they don't know much about it. They might have seen something on a television, heard something, might have picked up a pot of Arnica cream. But it's quite a mindset shift to look at your health and your conditions or where you want to be and decide you want to go down that path. Yeah, so I think bearing that in mind in our education and how we talk to people and present it, that we often start a lot further along the path than where they are.
A lot of people feel like they have to choose between one or the other. They have to either choose the, the allopathic, modern, a GP hospital system world, or they feel like or they need to choose the natural, holistic medicine. Where, especially in Australia, I've noticed quite a division between those two things. That if you choose one, one's just woo woo and a bit alternative, or the complementary, or the kind of I don't know. It seems like they're on opposing sides rather than people seeing them as something you can do both. You can utilize both systems and both worlds. Where needed, where appropriate. But for some people, it's a big leap to go to a naturopath or a herbalist or a homeopath, or like the natural therapies. Partially because it's still, for some people, it's still in the dark ages in their mind. It's still the witches. It's still the woo woo, or they don't have faith in it, or they're still in that, like you say, that rational reductionist kind of model, and they put more faith in one science study than what they do on thousands of years of use of a herb in Ayurveda or something like that. So yeah, that it is a big leap for some people to have the faith to go to a natural practitioner. And yeah, I really look forward to seeing a shift. I feel like there is a shift happening, definitely. But yeah, I look forward to seeing a bit more integration of the worlds, and people not feeling like they have to choose between one or the other, that they can just, where appropriate, go to the right practitioner, or, seek the right assistance.
Good points, Twiggy. I went to a Susan Weed talk. She's a naturopath herbalist from United States. And she said, "Oh, I was moving piles of my books around, and she sustained a hernia." Now, what she did next was really insightful and maybe offers a way forward. She said, "I then did a whole lot of research about who was the best surgeon, medical facility to do this hernia repair." She went and booked herself in, got the op. Okay. What does she do next? She's the lady with the long decoction herb teas. She got into her herb teas to facilitate a really speedy, complete healing after the operation. And I thought that was a really wise and profound balance between the worlds, like intelligently using the strength of each approach. And, as herbalists and naturopaths, we're not trying to put doctors out of business. We don't want to close hospitals.
No.
We need them. They've got valuable skills. They can do things we can't, but we can do things that they can't. And yeah, we need to get out of this polarizing binary view of something. And, medicine is politics. If you go and read back in the history and see what happens, contemporary, and it can get pretty nasty. And often we're coming out on the wrong side of the deal. But we still keep hanging in there. But yeah,
Yeah, I really like that you brought Susan Weed into it, because I have all of her books, and there's one in particular down there that's all about kind of reproductive issues, or just the down there taboo topics, often taboo topics. And she'll go through something like a UTI. So okay, you have a UTI, you can either choose these herbs or this natural treatment protocol. You could look at it from an energetic perspective. If you choose, and she totally doesn't shame these choices, but if you choose to go down the route of, say, antibiotics, then here's how you can support that choice with herbs and with it's not kind of like, oh well, you jumped off the bandwagon, now you're in their hands. It's like, okay, well, bringing it back, and how can we still support you with that choice that you felt that you had to make, or that you might have had to make. And I really appreciate that about her teachings, is that how to work with that. Okay, so you had surgery for that. Yeah, how do we support you after that surgery now? How do we help to detoxify those chemicals out of your system, or help to the scar tissue to heal quicker, or whatever the thing is? And that's something that is very, very rare in my experience to find in books. So yeah, so thanks for bringing her up, because it felt so relevant to what we were saying about people feeling that they have to choose one or the other. Yeah.
Yeah, I also learnt from Susan. She had like this. She might have learnt from someone else. I'm not sure the origin, but it was like this gradation of stages of what you do if you've got a medical issue, and it goes from 0 to 7. 0 is like do nothing, read, meditate, whatever, think. And 7 is, heavy duty surgery and drugs. But there's all these in between stages, and she didn't disparage any of the stages because each had a particular contribution and was suitable to a certain situation. Very, very good. And herbs slotted in somewhere, and minerals slotted in somewhere, and sleep and rest was, that slotted in. So this whole range of, like you were saying, expanding out the choices and then charting a course through that appropriate to each person. Yeah, very profound wisdom. And of course, Susan's one of those wonderful hippie herbalists out of America from the 60s. You had Michael Moore, Susan Weed, Michael Tierra, David Hoffman. Well, he was a transplanted hippie from England.
Yeah.
And of course, who founded United Plant Savers? Oh, I can't. Rosemary Gladstar.
Of course, yeah.
They just have contributed so much to, if you can call it the herbal renaissance or whatever. And I'm sure there's a few out here in Australia as well that we haven't, Dorothy Hall, but you'd never call Dorothy a hippie. But it's fascinating how they did all that. Was it David Hoffman had a quote, one of his jokes, he said, he grew up in the flower power era, and he said, some of us got the power and some of us got the flower. He put himself in the flower camp.
Oh, that's great. Beautiful. So then my next question that I really love to ask people is, because we've explored quite a few avenues of your personal experience and your different influences from Dorothy Hall to Matthew Woods and Ken Atherton and all of these wonderful learning environments and influences. And then you also have like the environment that you're creating with your workshops and classes and things like that. But if we kind of I like to look towards the future of like imagining together what is like the ideal world we'd like to see. What would we like to add to this, or what would you like to see more of in the realm of herbal education in Australia?
Good. And that was a question I was writing on this morning and got a little bit more of a handle on. So basically, you're going to be a professional herbalist. You've got your basic education. So you got to tackle your sciences, physiology and anatomy, chemistry, biology. Okay, that's in the reductionist camp, but we need to have a really good, sound knowledge of that because that's the water we swim in. So that's great. No questions about that. What I would then say is, from my own experience of what I've seen and looking around, a huge, rich vein of learning is what you might call mentorships, apprenticeships. Monkey see, monkey do. But it's more than that. It's like being around some of these people who've been doing it longer than you have. Their skill level's higher than you are. And sure, you pick up tips and tricks and things, but there's a transfer of knowledge and being that, it's almost unconscious, it's unspoken, in many ways it's undefined. Just being with them over a period of time, a profound, you take on a profound amount of knowledge or approach. I haven't got it very well described, but I think we're doing ourselves a huge disservice, A, not to recognise that, and B, not to incorporate it into our training. And also recognise that a lot of the herbal knowledge, there's lineages. Like we were talking about it earlier on, Ken Atherton, Dorothy Hall, Matthew Wood. Now, I'm passionately interested in classical music, and you're reading all the liner notes on CDs and things. What do you see? I'll give you an example from the Australian Brandenburg Orchestra. Paul Dyer heads it up and founded it, right? So you read his bio. Trained in Sydney Conservatorium. Okay, so you've got all these basic skills. What did he do next? He went overseas and trained with Bob van Asperen in Holland, who's a harpsichord specialist. So he went over there and he would have picked up a whole lot of technique, but he would have been in Bob van Asperen's, I don't know, musical force field, for want of a better word. Hanging out with him, training with him, talking with him, playing music, even if they just sat in chairs alongside one another, there's still something going on. So I think it's been there in the herbal field, maybe more unconsciously than consciously. I think we've drifted away from it because the training in Australia has changed so profoundly and, becoming university based. And this is not a criticism of universities, but because of economic pressures and times and whatever, they've moved away from some of that sort of, you may have had some of that mentorship, because, the lecturers and staff are just under so much pressure of what they've got to do.
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to bring that back. Even if it's post-qualification, you go and hang out with someone.
Internships, like doing more kind of one-on-one internships and mentorships.
Just being with them, listening. Whether you're just sitting in the corner on a console, listening. How do they talk? What do they do? I think there's an enormous amount of learning there that furthers herbal education.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what's also sad is we've had huge changes in education in Australia over the last, close to 10 years. All these little quirky colleges that were all around the place have largely disappeared because they can't work in the current regulatory environment, and the demands for audits and this and that and curriculums and plans and whatever. I've talked to some of these college owners and they just had to put the shutters down because they couldn't deal with that whole expansion of admin side. And, you had to be aligned with the university. Now, I can hear there's all sorts of good argument and points about, we're making the profession more professional and this and standardising courses and yeah. But we have, once again, it's like an ecosystem. In all those little colleges, and there are about 40 of them all around Australia, they all had, their own little way, their own little flavour. And those colleges built the herbal medicine profession in Australia. So, I mourn their passing and their diversity and the fact that they were dotted all around in all sorts of areas and made it more accessible for people to access that training. And I get the point about, you've got to cover your anatomy and physiology and your core subjects so that there's a base proficiency of knowledge. Tick, no argument with that. But all this sort of, little diversity of flavour and specialities where they had particularly key lecturers or whatever, I think that's a great loss. So there you go. That's a good answer.
Yeah, I'm definitely hearing you on that. The very first college that I enrolled in, and gosh, now I can't even remember the name, in Fremantle, they closed down because it was going to be coming soon that they were going to have to roll over to being able to offer degrees. They weren't going to be able to offer the advanced diplomas anymore. So I had to pull out of that school, and then I enrolled in Paramount College in Perth, and I got a few years into my degree before they closed down. They couldn't meet the demand as well, and so then I enrolled in Southern School of Natural Therapies, which then amalgamated into Torrens University, and kind of I've kind of been trying to get in the slipstream of these colleges and getting spat out the other end, and then not having the next college recognize the work from the last one. And so yeah, I've been hopping from one to the next as they're dying almost. So I've really
Oh,
been watching
God.
that process happen, and have mourned that loss of those smaller colleges as well that are just, Paramount College was just natural therapies, like that first college I enrolled in well, I think it was Coogee, actually, near Fremantle. That they were also like a natural medicine college. They were focused primarily on herbal medicine, and yeah, and then coming into Torrens, and I don't want to discredit Torrens because it's a wonderful university, but they are offering lots of different other degrees and qualifications, so you're not immersing in just a natural medicine environment. Even though there are lots of lecturers that are obviously natural medicine lecturers and herbal medicine lecturers, but the actual school itself, you're not like going to just a natural school kind of thing. There's also like all the beauty care and the digital graphic arts and all of these other things that, yeah, it's a totally different force field. It's not just like, oh, I'm going to my Hogwarts School of Herbal Witchcraft. Which that's funny. My daughter,
Yeah.
she says, "Oh, the elder tree is going to be the why don't you just call it Hogwarts? Because it's going to be the school of magic." But
Lovely,
yeah, also
lovely.
the other thing that I was getting from what you were saying is what you'd like to see for the future is a whole bunch of ships, like mentorships, more apprenticeships, more internships, and all of that, and that, like that one-on-one environments where you're learning from someone that's come from a lineage, and their lineage, they're not, and you can be connected to that. So yeah, I really appreciate that as well, where you're coming from, because so much gets lost if you're just in a classroom environment and you're one of 10 or 30 other students. You can't have that real one-on-one experience with the teacher. So yeah, so I really appreciate that, and I hope to see more of that in the years to come as well. Mm.
Yeah, we can learn from the arts world because they do it.
Mm.
Yeah, like I talked about the example, musicians, they do it. Artists do it. They'll go overseas on a study tour and they'll go to a particular art school that's got a certain strength. It might be in drawing or painting or pottery or what have you, to pick up that particular skill. And you read biographies of these people, and there's a huge amount about the people connection. I met so and so and he showed me this and blah blah blah. It's not like, oh, I read book A and I learnt how to hold my brush a different way. It's that people connection. Yeah, or
Mm.
maybe spent months in France just going around through the galleries, looking at paintings, being in their force field, the real painting, in front of the real painting. What's this like? How's this make me feel? You're not just looking at technical brushstroke work or whatever. I think we
Mm.
can use a lot of that. Yeah.
Yeah,
So a carefully crafted
embodied
blend.
learning spaces.
Mm,
Mm.
mm. You know, the core sciences and proficiencies that we do need to have, very important. But
Mm-hmm.
the learning that really progresses us is, going and seeing the plants or hanging out with these different people. And, a diversity of people. There's no one right way. I'm not running down the streets with a Matthew Wood banner saying everything, everything's got to be what Matthew Wood says, or everything's got to be as, so-and-so, Ken Atherton says. It's like you want to have all that, get your basic training done, and then you want to have as many diverse interests, influences as possible. Because it's a really broad church, and there's no one way to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, you're a bit of a patchwork quilt of all of the influences you've had that have led you to this moment, and then what you share is your own unique offering based on all of those influences and teachers and mentors that you've had throughout your life.
That's exactly what artists do. They have all these influences and then assimilate it, and then they get their own style, their own approach, their own take, and off they go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. I really like that that idea of kind of looking at other models at the arts industry or other things like that because yeah, they're not all just learning by books and on the computer and that. So we need to have more learning environments that are embodied. Embodied teachings where you actually get to really feel the teacher and feel the practice and feel the actually observe and be part of the harvesting rather than just it being a kind of rote learning experience of like, okay, you tell me something, I say it back to you, and now I've officially learnt it. It's like so far beyond that, actually having
Mm.
real life hands on embodied experiences with education. That's the future we're going to be creating. Beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, look, it's a good point. Like if you're in a clinic setting, you can have all this rote learning, but you've got to be able to recognize what black cohosh looks like expressed in a
Mm.
person. Um,
Mm.
you know, Tim Thomas from the Hierophant is one of my mentors, and he says, when you're talking to someone in a clinical setting, he says everything they do, say, be, everything is giving you clues about what the remedy is, who they are and what the remedy
Yeah.
is. He says everything. And it's like,
Mm.
so you've got to be in that mindset of picking up, perceiving, picking up the clues. You won't find that in a book. You won't find that
Mm.
expressed in a book. You've got to be able to see it. How does it manifest in a person? How does a herb manifest in a person?
Mm-hmm.
Rather than just thinking a strict, medical condition diagnosis. Oh, they've got plantar fasciitis or whatever. I'm going for herb X. So how does that manifest in that person? What are they doing and being and saying? And all these clues, and then okay, where what state is that person in? Yeah, what plant state? There you go. What plant state is that
Yeah.
person in?
Oh, that's wonderful that you've had teachers like Tim to teach you that. I've never actually had a teacher say those things to me, but I've kind of developed that myself just of my own accord with observation. Someone will walk in the door and I'll just know as soon as they start talking, I'm like motherwort. Just the look on your face, the way your hands, your body language, the things you're saying key things that are like, oh, yep, yep. No, I knew it from the moment you walked in. You just had motherwort all over you and all of the, and I could sit down and go, oh, what's the kind of map it all out on a cellular level to try to come back to the same point. But just through observation, it just, can see so much and the nuances of that. If you're not just going by the textbook method, and actually just sit back and use your own observation and go, okay, and your own intuition as well. There's few and far between nowadays the teachers that really teach intuition, really, and also having that backed up with, like you say, with all the sciences and the understanding of anatomy
Mm.
and physiology, and not just going through intuition alone. But there's not that many teachers nowadays that teach you to connect with that intuition and how to really attune to what the patient's needing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's quite amazing. Um, it's funny. It's like so I trained in horticulture originally with the Adelaide Botanic Garden, and I just noticed my sort of learning over the years once I'd finished that qualification. And I remember the day I was in a garden working, and I just got the realization that the answer to my horticultural questions is going to come from observation and interaction and intuition rather than rushing home looking for the book that had the answer on page 373, because you can never get
Mm-hmm.
that precise answer because there's not enough books and not enough stuff written. It's like, okay, learn from what you see and being able to deduce and work your way through the problem rather than trying to rush off and pick up a textbook. So it's like the textbooks get you a long way, like the first stage on a rocket, it gets you up off the ground and you got you moving. The further stages of learning, you're going to have to learn how to learn and influences and mentors,
Mm.
and go from there. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, learn how to learn. I really like that. So yeah, I'm gonna have to start looking at wrapping things up now, even though I feel like we could just spend weeks talking about all of this and comparing our book collections and everything. And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I really enjoy talking with you about all of this this topic. There's so many rabbit holes we can go into as well. But I just want to ask you about any of your current projects and offerings with Tinderry Mountain Herbs or in any other space, maybe at the Herophant. I'd love to hear about any of your current projects and offerings, and also any potential upcoming workshops or projects or offerings that you have.
Sure. So I've talked a bit about the principal specialist herbs I'm growing. So my website is Tinderry, Tinderry, Mountain, Mountain Herbs, all one word, .com.au. I'd encourage people to go there, sign up for the newsletter, and that'll keep you current with what I'm doing, courses, things, plant developments. I have a natural skincare range that's on the website there, where I grow all the herbs, handcraft the products. Thank you, Ken Atherton, Pindari Herbs, who taught me, his week-long immersive course. So I've carried his recipes on and fine-tuned them, herbally improved them. Also, I do in-person talks coming up at the Heirophant, 26th of February, making herbal syrups. And gradually on my website, I'm putting up digital versions of my courses. So, if you're not in New South Wales or in Canberra or wherever, or the date doesn't suit, you can still access that learning in a digital format. So at the moment, I've got 3 essential natural remedies for first aiders up there. Currently working on herbal teas for modern times that will be up. And soon I'll be creating a Facebook group for people at all levels who want to have a private group who want to dig more into how to grow medicinal herbs and make products from medicinal herbs. So that's something to keep an eye out. And if you want a free ebook on herbal skincare, head over to my Facebook page, Tinderry Mountain Herbs, and you can download a free ebook there as well. So that gives you heaps of things to do. And that's a potted picture.
I recall we were talking about, and I'm going to hold you to this, you were talking about developing a mentoring course for advanced growers of medicinal herbs.
Absolutely. Yeah. So at the moment it exists in language only. Yeah, it exists in language only. So this is the deeper end of the pool. So serious growers of medicinal herbs who want to focus on a few things, because it's so vitally important we build up a range of growers here in Australia and orientated towards higher value herb products and orientated towards such that people can make a decent living from it. And so it's like a mentorship where you're guided, helped, problem solved, bit of teaching, lots of interaction. So yeah, still in the development phase, but I really want to get that one off the ground.
Beautiful. I'm gonna be sending you periodic reminders about that just to make sure it happens, because I think
Please
it's
do.
a really beneficial. And we kind of look back at Ken Atherton as a legend, and so many people don't get that recognition within their lifetimes. It's often after they pass that they're really given that legend status. But when I look at what you're offering and how unique and how necessary that is, and how much that's going to benefit future generations. Future generations of practitioners, future generations of patients are going to have these medicines available. The value in what you're doing is amazing. And so you're a living legend, and I think that people should be making the most of the opportunity to learn from you while you're here. Because it's always the sad thing when you only find out about someone once they're long gone, and you're like, oh, I wish, even Ken Atherton, I did his week-long seminar. the one that happened after he'd passed, that was held by, Sandra Parker and Linda Bates. And yeah, I missed out on getting to actually learn with him. So I'll encourage all of our listeners to, to learn with you while they can, because you never know what the future holds and when someone's not around anymore. So, and I also hope that you make a book sometime, because that's such a great way to immortalize knowledge. So yeah, I'll be a little nag sitting on your shoulder saying, come on, where's the mentoring course for advanced growers of medical herbs, and when's your book gonna come?
Thanks, Twiggy. Yes, you have permission to nag.
Okay, great.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than having regrets that, I wish I had done that. Like I've had a few about, I had an opportunity to do Dorothy Hall's course and I didn't. Now I've sort of come to peace with it, but it's like you said, this stuff doesn't hang around forever. Circumstances change, people die. Unfortunately, herbalists die. We don't want to, but they do. And those opportunities disappear. And I just say and strongly encourage everyone, if you want to do it, do it. Don't hesitate.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yes, keep nagging, Twiggy, keep nagging. I need more nagging there.
Yeah, don't worry. You can ask my partner. I'm a great nag. Wonderful. So before we wrap up for the day, is there anything else? Is there only just one thing you might like the listeners to hear? I mean, you've already shared so much that I'm sure is going to inspire people, but is there just any kind of last little sentiment you'd like to offer to our listeners?
Just grow some herbs. It doesn't matter, you don't have to be on an industrial scale, but have some herbs growing with you, even if it's in a pot. Some connection there to keep the connection with the plants. You don't have to get 135. That's just crazy. But what's that? Michael Moore had a saying. If he praised someone, he would say they had a great brain and dirty fingernails, meaning that they had the intellectual side, but they also had the groundedness and the connection with the plants. Yeah. So that's what I would encourage everyone. Keep growing, keep sharing.
Beautiful. Thank you. That's wonderful advice. I completely concur with that. So thank you so much for joining me on the show here today. And and as I'll include a bunch of links for the listeners to your offerings, and then just let us know once you do develop those Facebook groups and as you have new offerings come up, and we'll share them onto our onto our mailing list and our social media and things like that, because I'm sure that there'll be listeners eagerly awaiting the manifestation of the next offerings. So yeah, thank you. Thanks for your time, and thanks for coming on the show today.
Thanks, Twiggy. Great opportunity, and great to talk about these topics and get the message out to the people. Been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Herbal Education segment of the Elder Tree podcast. Stay tuned every new moon as I interview amazing and inspiring herbal educators from around Australia. To find out more about the Elder Tree, you can go to our website, which is theeldertree.org. And through our website, you can subscribe to our mailing list. You can also follow our journey on Instagram and on Facebook. Thank you again so much, and have a most wonderful day.